Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He nearly dropped his cup as red lights flashed across the control room of Liberty Prime, Earth's biggest space station. Jake had been watching the stars for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "What the hell is that?" asked his partner, Lieutenant Carol White, pointing at the main screen. Jake stared at the radar display. Hundreds of red dots were appearing at the edge of the solar system. Big dots, really big dots. Each one was the size of a small city, and they were moving toward Earth. "Get me Admiral Harper right now," Jake said, his voice shaking. He pressed the emergency button that connected him directly to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Lisa Harper answered within seconds. "Morrison, what's your status?" "Ma'am, we have a problem. A big problem. There are over 800 unknown ships entering our solar system. They're huge, and they're heading straight for us." There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Then Admiral Harper spoke in a calm, steady voice. "Are you certain about those numbers, Commander?" "Yes, ma'am. 800 and counting. They just appeared out of nowhere, like they jumped through space. Stay on the line, Morrison. I'm calling the President." Jake watched the screen as more ships appeared. They were arranged in perfect formation, like a military parade. But these weren't human ships. The design was completely alien, with curves and angles that hurt to look at. They moved with a purpose that made his stomach turn. "President." Alex Rodriguez was in a meeting when his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Admiral Harper using the emergency line. He had never seen that before. "Mr. President, we have a situation. We need to call an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council right now." 20 minutes later, the most powerful people on Earth were gathered in the underground bunker beneath Washington, D.C. General Pete Williams, the head of Earth's military forces, looked grim. Dr. Susan Walsh from the Xenobiology Division was pale and shaking. They all knew what this meant. "Show them, Admiral," the President said. The main screen displayed the alien fleet. Even the generals gasped when they saw how many ships there were. Each vessel was massive, bristling with weapons that could level entire cities. "How long do we have?" asked General Williams. "At their current speed, about 6 hours before they reach Earth's orbit," Admiral Harper replied. That's when the message came through. The aliens were trying to communicate. Dr. Walsh worked frantically with her team to decode the signal. Within an hour, they had managed to translate it. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect English through some kind of universal translator. Primitive species of the third planet. "I am War Marshal Lexfer of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species and the burning of your world. You will respond with your acceptance of these terms, or you will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is your only chance to survive." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the screen, trying to process what they had just heard. "How many worlds have they conquered?" asked President Rodriguez. Dr. Walsh checked her notes. "According to their transmission data, over 3,000 worlds across the galaxy. They've been doing this for 500 years. General Williams slammed his fist on the table. 3,000 worlds, and now they want ours. What kind of weapons do they have? From what we can scan, each ship carries enough firepower to crack a planet, said Admiral Harper. They could turn Earth into an asteroid field in minutes. Captain Ryan Torres, Earth's best military strategist, had been quiet until now. They're following standard military formation. Look at how they're arranged. It's textbook conquest tactics. What does that mean? Asked the president. It means they're overconfident. They think we're just another primitive species that will roll over and surrender. They haven't bothered to study us or learn about human military tactics. Dr. Walsh nodded. The captain's right. Their message was standard Imperial protocol. They've probably used the exact same words on thousands of other worlds. But those other worlds surrendered, said General Williams. We have 72 hours to decide if we want to join them or be destroyed. President Rodriguez stood up and walked to the window. Even though they were underground, he could imagine the alien fleet hanging in space above them like a sword waiting to fall. What are our options? He asked. Surrender and become slaves, said Admiral Harper, or fight and probably die. There's a third option, said Captain Torres. We could surprise them. Everyone turned to look at him. Explain, said the president. They expect us to either surrender or fight them in a traditional space battle. They've conquered 3,000 worlds using the same tactics every time. But what if we don't fight the way they expect? What if we use tactics they've never seen before? General Williams shook his head. Captain, they have 800 ships. We have maybe 50 that could fight in space. It's suicide. Not if we're smart about it, Torres replied. They're expecting us to be afraid. They're expecting us to beg for mercy or make a desperate attack. But what if we do something they've never seen before? The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. Finally, President Rodriguez spoke. What do you have in mind, Captain? We send them a message they won't expect. We tell them to leave. That's insane, said General Williams. They'll just laugh at us. Maybe, said Torres, but it will also confuse them. No species has ever told them to leave before. It might buy us time to prepare. Admiral Harper looked at the president. Sir, we need to respond to their message soon. They're expecting either surrender or silence. President Rodriguez made his decision. Commander Morrison, are you still monitoring their communications? Jake's voice came through the speakers from the space station. Yes, Mr. President, I'm here. Send them a message. Tell them this is their only warning. Tell them to leave now, or face the consequences. There was silence on the other end of the line. Sir, are you sure about that? Send the message, Commander. Jake Morrison took a deep breath and opened a channel to the alien fleet. His hands were shaking as he typed the words that would either save humanity or doom it. This is your only warning. Leave now or face the consequences. The message was sent. Now all they could do was wait and see how the most powerful empire in the galaxy would respond to humanity's first and only warning. War Marshal Dexver stared at the message on his screen and began to laugh. In 500 years of conquest, no species had ever told the Zephyrian Empire to leave. Most worlds begged for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. A few made desperate threats, but none had ever issued a warning to him. Sub-Commander Krell, did you translate this message correctly? He asked his communications officer. Yes, War Marshal. The primitive humans are telling us to leave or face consequences. The entire bridge crew started laughing. These humans were either the stupidest species they had ever encountered, or they were completely insane. Either way, it would make their conquest more amusing. What consequences could they possibly threaten us with? Asked Commander Zexton, the fleet's tactical officer. Their weapons are barely capable of reaching space. We could destroy their entire civilization with a single ship. War Marshal Dexver nodded. Send a reply? Tell them they have amused us, but their time is running out. 60 hours remain. Back on Earth, the leaders were not waiting for a response. President Rodriguez had authorized something that had been planned in secret for over 20 years. General Williams was already on the phone with military commanders around the world. Operation Prometheus is now active, he announced. All units, begin Phase 1 immediately. Colonel Amy Patterson was sitting in a bunker, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had been waiting for this moment her entire career. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at computer terminals, activating systems that had been hidden across the solar system for decades. "Mountain base to all units," she spoke into her microphone. "Begin deployment of all assets. This is not a drill." Major Chris Baker was coordinating with civilian leaders across the globe. For 20 years, governments had been preparing for this exact situation. Every major city had hidden weapons. Every military base had secret defenses. Every space agency had been building something that the public never knew about. "Maria, are your people ready in South America?" He asked Maria Santos, a former military officer who now coordinated civilian defenses, checked her lists. "All teams are in position. We have 3,000 volunteers ready to operate the ground-based systems." "John, what about the European sector?" John Mitchell, speaking from a command center in London, replied, "Ready to go. Our people have been training for this day for years. We're all set." The secret was simple. While the world's governments had publicly focused on space exploration and scientific research, they had secretly been preparing for war. Not war against other humans, but war against exactly this kind of threat. Dr. Susan Walsh was working with her team in the deepest levels of the Pentagon. Dr. Kevin Ross and Dr. Linda Gray were analyzing every piece of data they could gather about the alien ships. "Look at this," Dr. Ross said, pointing to his screen. "Their ships are powerful, but they're designed for fighting other advanced civilizations. They expect their enemies to have similar technology and tactics. What does that mean for us?" asked Dr. Walsh. "It means they're prepared for energy weapons, plasma cannons, and force fields. But they're not prepared for kinetic weapons, explosive charges, or guerrilla tactics." Dr. Gray nodded. "Their ships are heavily armored against advanced energy weapons, but they might be vulnerable to simple physical attacks. Old-fashioned explosives and high-speed projectiles." In space, Captain Ryan Torres was coordinating the most important part of the plan. For 30 years, humans had been sending mining ships and research vessels throughout the solar system. What the aliens didn't know was that many of these ships were actually disguised weapons platforms. "Liberty Prime, this is Torres. What's your status?" Jake Morrison replied from the space station. "All systems ready, Captain. We have 47 hidden platforms online. The enemy has no idea we're here." The hidden platforms were scattered throughout the asteroid belt and around the outer planets. They looked like mining equipment and research stations, but they were actually kinetic weapons capable of firing projectiles at incredible speeds. Colonel Beth Turner was managing the most dangerous part of the operation. Her team had spent years modifying asteroids, turning them into massive weapons. When the time came, they could launch these space rocks at the enemy fleet like bullets from a gun. "Turner to base command. All asteroid platforms are ready. We have 17 rocks loaded and targeted." President Rodriguez was addressing the world from the White House. He couldn't tell people about the alien threat without causing panic, but he needed to prepare them for what was coming. "My fellow citizens, I want you to know that we face a challenge unlike any in human history. I cannot give you details, but I can tell you this. We are ready. We have been preparing for this day for decades. Trust in your government, trust in your military, and trust in each other." Around the world, people watched the president's speech and wondered what he was talking about. But in secret facilities across the globe, thousands of people who had been training for this moment were getting ready for the fight of their lives. The genius of the human plan was its simplicity. Instead of trying to match the aliens' advanced technology, they would use the oldest weapons in the book: rocks, explosives, and surprise attacks. The aliens expected a civilized space battle. They were going to get a brawl. Danny White, an engineer, who had spent 15 years working on mining equipment, was making final checks on his systems. His job was to coordinate the attack on the alien fleet's communication systems. Without communications, even the most advanced fleet would be helpless. Karan Johnson, a logistics coordinator, was managing the movement of supplies and personnel. She had been told this was for a war game, but she was beginning to suspect it was something much more serious. "All teams, this is Base Command," announced Colonel Patterson. "We have 58 hours until the enemy deadline. All preparations must be complete in 48 hours. The message was clear. Earth was not going to surrender. Earth was not going to beg for mercy. Earth was going to fight, and it was going to fight in a way that no alien empire had ever seen before. Dr. Walsh's team made a breakthrough. Steve Brown, a computer specialist, had been working on cracking the alien communication system. Carol Davis, a linguist, had been studying their language patterns. "We're into their network," announced Steve. "Not deeply, but we can monitor their communications." "What are they saying?" asked Dr. Walsh. Carol Davis translated the alien messages. "They're laughing at us. They think we're insane. They're calling us the amusing primitives and placing bets on how quickly we'll surrender." "Good," said Dr. Walsh. "Let them laugh. Let them think we're crazy. That's exactly what we want." The 72-hour countdown continued. The alien fleet moved closer to Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had conquered 3,000 worlds using the same tactics every time. They saw no reason why Earth would be any different. But Earth was different. Earth was full of humans, and humans had a reputation for doing the unexpected. The aliens were about to learn why humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and every other disaster their planet could throw at them. The warning had been sent. The preparations were complete. Now all that remained was to see if humanity's gamble would pay off, or if Earth would become the 3001st world to fall to the Zephyrian Empire. More Marshall. Dexfer looked at the countdown timer. On his screen, 58 hours remained. He expected the humans to surrender long before then. After all, they had seen his fleet. They knew they couldn't win. What he didn't know was that the humans had no intention of winning a fair fight. They were going to cheat, and they were going to cheat in ways that would make the entire galaxy take notice. The 72 hours were up. War Marshal Dexfer looked at his countdown timer and smiled. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. The humans had not surrendered. They had not even tried to negotiate. It was time to show them the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. "All ships, prepare for attack formation," he commanded. "Target their major cities. We will give them one final demonstration of our power before we destroy them completely." The alien fleet moved into position above Earth. 800 massive warships arranged themselves in perfect formation, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. Their weapons powered up with a humming sound that could be heard even through the vacuum of space. "Sub-Commander Krell, open a channel to the planet. I want them to hear their doom." But before Dexfer could speak, something unexpected happened. The space around his fleet suddenly came alive with movement. Objects that had looked like floating debris and abandoned mining equipment began to move with purpose. Captain Ryan Torres was coordinating the attack from Luna Base, hidden on the Acumice, hidden on the dark side of the moon. He had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. "All units, this is Torres. Execute Operation Prometheus." Repeat, execute Operation Prometheus. Throughout the solar system, the hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves. What the aliens had dismissed as space junk were actually kinetic weapons, missile launchers, and modified mining equipment turned into instruments of war. Jake Morrison was at the controls of Liberty Prime, but the space station was not what it appeared to be. Hidden beneath its research facilities were weapons that could punch holes through the hulls of starships. Liberty Prime to all units. We have target lock on the enemy flagship. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The first shot came from what looked like an old communications satellite. A tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole slammed into the side of a Zephyrian cruiser at tremendous speed. The alien ship's shields flickered and died as the simple piece of metal tore through its hull. What was that? Demanded War Marshal Dexfer. How did a primitive kinetic weapon penetrate our shields? Commander Zexton checked his instruments. Sir, our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and plasma bolts. They're not calibrated for high-speed physical projectiles. More shots followed. From every direction, simple but deadly weapons began attacking the alien fleet. The Zephyrians found themselves under assault from enemies they couldn't even see clearly. Major Chris Baker was coordinating the second phase of the attack. Throughout the asteroid belt, disguised mining platforms began launching their cargo at the alien fleet. But instead of valuable minerals, they were launching explosive charges and metal debris. Asteroid Base 7 to Base Command. Package delivered. Direct hit on enemy destroyer. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner activated the most spectacular part of the plan. The modified asteroids began moving toward the alien fleet under their own power. Each one was equipped with simple rocket engines and guidance systems. Turner to all units. The big rocks are flying. Impact in 40 minutes. The Zephyrians had never faced anything like this before. Their tactical computers were designed to track sophisticated warships and energy weapons. They were not prepared for attacks by flying rocks and metal debris. Sir, we're taking damage from multiple directions, reported Commander Zexton. The enemy is using primitive kinetic weapons that our shields can't stop effectively. War Marshal Dexfer was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. These humans were not fighting like any civilized species. They were fighting like barbarians, using weapons that no advanced civilization would even consider. Return fire. Destroy those platforms. But the human weapons were small, fast, and well hidden. The massive alien warships were designed to fight other massive warships. They were not designed to hunt down tiny, fast-moving targets scattered across the solar system. Colonel Amy Patterson was coordinating the ground-based part of the attack. Hidden in mountains and underground bunkers around the world were rail, guns and missile launchers that could reach into space. Mountain base to all ground units. Begin Phase 2. Target the enemy communication arrays. The second wave of attacks focused on the alien ship's ability to communicate with each other. Danny White and his team had studied the alien technology and identified weak points in their communication systems. White to Base Command were jamming their primary frequencies. They're having trouble coordinating their attacks. Karen Johnson was managing the logistics of the battle from her command center. She was coordinating the movement of supplies, ammunition, and personnel across the globe. All teams, ammunition status report, South America, 70% remaining. Europe, 60% remaining. Asia, 80% remaining. North America, 50% remaining. The battle was going better than anyone had dared to hope. The alien fleet was taking serious damage, and the humans were still fighting at full strength. Dr. Susan Walsh and her team had managed to penetrate deeper into the alien communication network. Steve Brown had been working around the clock to hack their systems. We're in, he announced. I can see their tactical displays. They're confused and scared. Carol Davis was translating the alien communications in real time. They're calling us insane barbarians and impossible primitives. They've never seen tactics like this before. What else are they saying? Asked Dr. Walsh. They're arguing among themselves. Some want to retreat. Others want to call for reinforcements. Their war marshal is trying to maintain order, but his fleet is in chaos. The genius of the human strategy was becoming clear. Instead of trying to match the aliens' superior technology, they were using the aliens' expectations against them. The Zephyrians had prepared for a civilized space battle. They were getting a guerrilla war. Captain Torres launched the third phase of the attack. Hidden throughout the solar system were small, fast ships that looked like research vessels and cargo haulers. But these ships were actually boarding craft, designed to get close to the alien vessels and attack them from the inside. Boarding teams, you are cleared for approach. Target the enemy command ships. Jake Morrison was piloting one of these disguised ships. His target was a Zephyrian cruiser that had been damaged by the kinetic weapons. Its shields were down, and its hull was breached. Morrison to base command. I'm going in. Wish me luck. The boarding action was the most dangerous part of the plan. The humans had no idea what they would find inside the alien ships. But they knew they had to try. Lieutenant Colonel Turner's asteroid weapons were beginning to reach their targets. The modified Space Orcs slammed into the alien ships with the force of nuclear weapons. The Zephyrians watched in horror as their mighty warships were destroyed by simple rocks moving at high speed. Sir, we've lost 12 ships to kinetic impacts, reported Commander Zexton. Our shields are useless against these weapons. War Marshal Vexfer was beginning to panic. In 500 years of conquest, he had never lost a single ship to primitive weapons. Now he was watching his fleet being torn apart by rocks and metal rods. All ships withdraw to safe distance. We need to regroup and analyze their tactics. But the humans were not going to let them regroup. The hidden weapons platforms continued their attacks, targeting any ship that tried to pull back. The aliens found themselves trapped in a battle. They could not win and could not escape. Major Baker coordinated the final phase of the initial assault. The civilian volunteers, who had been training for this moment, began operating the ground-based weapons. Ordinary people who had never been in combat were now fighting the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Baker to all civilian units, you are authorized to engage. Show them what Earth is made of. Maria Santos was operating a railgun hidden in the Andes Mountains. She had been a school teacher before the war, but she had trained for this moment. For 15 years, target acquired, firing. Her shot struck an alien destroyer in its engine section. The ship began to spin out of control, its crew helpless to stop it. John Mitchell was coordinating the European Defense Network. His team was operating weapons hidden in the Alps and the Scottish Highlands. European command to all units. We have multiple targets. Engage at will. The battle was turning into a rout. The Zephyrian fleet, which had conquered 3,000 worlds, was being destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The humans were fighting with weapons that no civilized race would use, tactics that no military academy taught, and a determination that no alien empire had ever encountered. War Marshal Dexfer stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had lost over 200 ships, and the humans were still fighting. His mighty fleet was being defeated by barbarians using rocks and metal rods. Sir, we need to retreat, urged Commander Zexton. We're taking too much damage. But as Dexfer gave the order to withdraw, he discovered that the humans had one more surprise waiting for him. The way home was blocked. War Marshal Dexfer stared at his navigation display in shock. The jump points that would allow his fleet to escape the solar system were blocked by human weapons platforms. Somehow, these primitive humans had anticipated his retreat and prepared for it. How is this possible? He demanded. How did they know we would try to withdraw through those coordinates? Commander Zexton was equally confused. Sir, those are standard Imperial withdrawal protocols. Every military academy in the galaxy teaches the same escape routes. Then these humans have been studying our tactics, Bexfer realized. They knew exactly what we would do. He was right. For over 20 years, Earth's military leaders had been preparing for this exact scenario. General Pete Williams had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. Captain Ryan Torres had analyzed every battle the Zephyrian Empire had ever fought. They knew the aliens' playbook better than some aliens did. Torres to all units, the captain announced from Luna Base. Phase 4 is now active. The enemy is trapped. Begin the final assault. The human strategy had worked perfectly. Instead of trying to defeat the alien fleet in direct combat, they had used the aliens' own tactics against them. The Zephyrians were trapped in a kill zone of their own making. Colonel Amy Patterson was coordinating the final attack from her mountain bunker. The weapons platforms that had been hidden throughout the solar system were now revealed in their full glory. There were thousands of them, each one disguised as innocent space debris or mining equipment. All units, this is Mountain Base. Execute final phase. Show them what humans are capable of. The aliens were discovering that humanity's greatest weapon was not any single technology, but their ability to think differently. While the Zephyrians had spent centuries perfecting their advanced weapons, the humans had spent decades learning to use simple weapons in unexpected ways. Jake Morrison was still piloting his boarding craft toward the damaged alien cruiser. His ship looked like a harmless research vessel, but it was actually packed with explosives and human soldiers. Morrison to boarding team. We're going in. Remember, we're not trying to capture the ship. We're trying to cause as much damage as possible. The boarding action was unlike anything the aliens had ever experienced. Instead of trying to fight their way through the ship in a traditional military operation, the humans were using guerrilla tactics. They moved in small groups, set explosive charges, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner was managing the most devastating part of the attack. Her team had been preparing for this moment for years. Hidden in the outer reaches of the solar system were weapons that the aliens had never even imagined. Turner to base command. The big surprise is ready. Target locked on the enemy flagship. The big surprise was a weapon that only humans would have thought to build. It was a modified cargo ship filled with nuclear waste, accelerated to tremendous speed by a series of gravity assists around the outer planets. When it hit the alien flagship, it would not just destroy the ship. It would contaminate it with radiation that would make it uninhabitable for centuries. Dr. Susan Walsh and her team had made their most important breakthrough yet. They had not only hacked into the alien communication network, but they had gained access to the aliens' military database. We're in their command systems, announced Steve Brown. I can see their battle plans, their ship designs, everything. Carol Davis was translating the panic in the alien communications. They're calling this impossible. They're saying that no primitive species should be able to do this. What else? Asked Dr. Walsh. They're scared, really scared. Some of them are talking about surrender. The humans had achieved something that no other species in the galaxy had ever accomplished. They had made the Zephyrian Empire afraid. President Rodriguez was monitoring the battle from the White House Situation Room. The reports coming in were almost too good to believe. The alien fleet was being destroyed by weapons that cost a fraction of what the aliens had spent on their ships. General Williams, what's our status? He asked. Sir, we've destroyed or disabled over 400 enemy ships. Our casualties are minimal. The enemy is trapped and unable to retreat. And our secret weapon? Ready to deploy on your command, Mr. President. The secret weapon was not a single device, but a strategy that only humans would have conceived. For 20 years, they had been preparing not just to defend Earth, but to go on the offensive. Hidden throughout the solar system were ships and sea, weapons designed not just to fight the Zephyrians, But to take the fight to them, Major Chris Baker was coordinating with civilian leaders around the world. The people who had been training in secret for decades were now operating the most advanced weapons Earth had ever built. Baker to all civilian commanders. How are your people holding up? Maria Santos replied from South America. My team is tired, but determined. We've been waiting for this fight our whole lives. John Mitchell reported from Europe. Same here. Our people know what's at stake. They're not going to give up. The civilian soldiers were proving to be just as effective as the military ones. They had been trained by the best, equipped with the best weapons Earth could build, and motivated by the knowledge that they were fighting for the survival of their species. Danny White and his team had succeeded in completely disrupting the alien communication network. The enemy fleet was now operating blind, unable to coordinate their attacks or share information. White to base command. Enemy communications are down. They're fighting as individual ships now, not as a fleet. Karen Johnson was managing the logistics of the battle with military precision. She was coordinating the movement of supplies, ammunition, and personnel across the solar system. All teams, ammunition status report. We're at 60% across. All platforms. We have enough for 3 more hours of sustained combat. That should be enough, replied Colonel Patterson. The enemy won't last another hour. She was right. The alien fleet was collapsing under the sustained human attack. Ships were breaking formation, trying to escape, only to be destroyed by the hidden weapons platforms that blocked every escape route. War Marshal Dexfer was facing the impossible. His fleet, which had conquered 3,000 worlds, was being destroyed by barbarians who shouldn't have been able to fight back at all. Sir, we need to surrender, urged Commander Zexton. We're taking too much damage. If we don't stop fighting, now we'll all be dead within the hour. Surrender? Dexfer couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender to primitives. Sir, these are not primitives. I don't know what they are, but they're not primitives. The alien commander was beginning to understand what his empire had stumbled into. These humans were not just another conquest. They were something entirely different, something that the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Torres was preparing for the final phase of the battle. The aliens were trapped, their communications were down, and their escape routes were blocked. It was time to end this. Torres to President Rodriguez. We're ready for the final assault. Request permission to proceed. Permission granted, Captain. End this. The final assault was devastating. Every hidden weapon in the solar system opened fire at once. The alien fleet was caught in a crossfire that no military force could survive. Lieutenant, Colonel Turner's nuclear waste projectile struck the alien flagship with the force of a small asteroid. The ship broke apart in a flash of radiation and debris. Jake, Morrison and his boarding teams set off their charges simultaneously. A dozen alien ships exploded from the inside as the human saboteurs completed their mission. The ground-based weapons fired their final salvos. Railguns, missile launchers, and kinetic weapons all targeted the remaining alien ships. In less than 10 minutes, the entire alien fleet was destroyed or disabled. 800 ships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were reduced to floating wreckage. War Marshal Dexfor found himself aboard one of the few surviving ships, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet. For the first time in his life, he was considering something that no Ziphian commander had ever considered: surrender. Sir, said Commander Zexton, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Captain Torres' voice came through the alien. Speakers speaking in perfect Zephyrian through their own translation systems. This is Captain Torres of the Earth Defense Force. War Marshal Dexfor, you have 2 choices. Surrender now and face trial for your crimes against the species of this galaxy, or continue fighting and be destroyed along with the rest of your fleet. For the first time in 500 years, a Zephian war marshal was being offered terms by his enemies. The galaxy had just changed forever. War Marshal Vexfer stared at the communication device in his hands. Never in 500 years of conquest had a Zephyrian commander been offered terms by a defeated enemy. But he was not the victor here. His fleet was destroyed, his empire's reputation was in ruins, and he was being offered mercy by the very species he had come to enslave. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Commander Zexton. Around them, the bridge crew waited in silence. They had never been in this situation before. Vexfer looked at his tactical display. Of his original 800 ships, only 37 remained operational. The rest were either destroyed or so badly damaged that they were floating hulks. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy using weapons that should not have worked. "Open a channel to the human commander," he said finally. Captain Torres appeared on the main screen, speaking from his command center on Luna Base. Behind him, Vexfer could see human military officers working at their stations. These people looked calm and professional, not like the savage barbarians he had expected. "War Marshal Vexfer," Torres said, "I'm waiting for your answer." "I surrender," Vexfer said. The words felt strange in his mouth. No Zephyrian commander had ever spoken them before. "My remaining ships will power down their weapons and submit to your authority." "A wise choice," Torres replied. "You and your officers will be taken into custody and held for trial. Your crews will be questioned about the crimes your empire has committed across the galaxy." Dr. Susan Walsh and her team had been working around the clock to decode the alien database they had captured. What they found was horrifying. The Zephyrian Empire had not just conquered 3,000 worlds. They had enslaved entire species, destroyed civilizations, and committed genocide on a scale that was hard to imagine. "Captain Torres," Dr. Walsh reported, "we've analyzed their records. The Zephyrians have enslaved over 40 different species. Some of these civilizations have been under their control for hundreds of years." Steve Brown had been working on translating the alien records. According to their database, they have prison planets where they keep entire species as slaves. Billions of intelligent beings are being held captive across the galaxy. Carol Davis was translating communications from the captured alien ships. The surviving aliens are in shock. They're saying that this is impossible. No primitive species has ever defeated them before. President Rodriguez was meeting with world leaders to discuss what would happen next. The victory over the aliens was just the beginning. Earth now had access to advanced alien technology and knowledge of a galaxy full of enslaved worlds. "General Williams, what's our next step?" the president asked. "Sir, we have 37 alien ships in our custody. We also have thousands of prisoners and access to their entire military database. We now know more about the galaxy than any human has ever known before." "And what do we do with that knowledge?" General Williams smiled. "We do what humans do best, Mr. President. We free the slaves." The plan that emerged from the meeting was audacious even by human standards. Instead of using their victory to conquer territory or demand tribute, Earth would use the captured alien technology to liberate. The enslaved worlds across the galaxy. Colonel Amy Patterson was tasked with analyzing the alien ships and weapons. Her team was already working on reverse engineering, the technology to create new weapons and ships for Earth's expanding military. Patterson to Base Command. "These alien ships are incredibly advanced, but they're also incredibly predictable. They're designed to fight the same way every time. If we can modify our tactics, we can defeat fleets much larger than this one." Lieutenant Colonel Beth Turner was put in charge of training new human crews to operate the captured alien ships. The plan was to use these ships to carry the fight to the Zephyrian Empire's other holdings. Turner to all training units. We're going to learn how to fly these alien ships, and then we're going to use them to free every slave world in the galaxy. Major. Chris Baker was coordinating with the civilian volunteers who had fought in the battle. These ordinary people had proven that humans could fight and win against impossible odds. Now they would help plan the liberation of the galaxy. Baker to all civilian commanders. You've proven that Earth can defend itself. Now we're going to prove that Earth can defend others. Maria Santos was already volunteering for the next mission. My team is ready to go wherever you need us. We've tasted victory, and we want more. John Mitchell agreed. The European teams are ready for deployment. We've shown that humans can fight. Now let's show the galaxy what we're fighting for. Jake Morrison was promoted to Admiral and put in charge of the new human space fleet. His first mission would be to take a combined human-alien task force to the nearest slave world and begin the liberation. Morrison to all units. We're going to take our message to the stars. Every enslaved world in the galaxy is going to hear the same words we sent to these invaders. This is your only warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. Dr. Walsh and her team were working on establishing communication with the enslaved species. Using the alien translation technology, they began sending messages to the prison planets. This is Dr. Susan Walsh of Earth. We have defeated a Zephyrian fleet and captured their ships. We are coming to free you. Prepare for liberation. The responses that came back were almost too emotional to translate. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were learning that someone was finally coming to help them. War Marshal Vexfor was being held in a human prison facility, but he was treated better than most prisoners in the Zephyrian Empire. He was given food, medical care, and even books to read. It was more mercy than his empire had ever shown to its enemies. Captain Torres visited him regularly to question him about the empire's other holdings and military capabilities. Why are you doing this? Vexfor asked during one of these meetings. You've defeated us. You could take our ships and our technology and build your own empire. Why are you trying to free our slaves? Torres smiled. Because that's what humans do. We don't conquer people. We free them. But you'll make enemies across the galaxy. Other empires will see you as a threat. Let them. We gave your empire one warning. We'll give them the same courtesy. The first human liberation fleet launched. 6 months after the battle for Earth. It consisted of 20 human ships and 15 captured Zephyrian vessels, all crewed by humans and alien prisoners who had joined the human cause. Morrison commanded the fleet from the bridge of the captured alien flagship, which had been renamed the Liberty. His destination was Kepler 442b, a world that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for over 200 years. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We're about to jump to hyperspace. Our mission is simple. Free the slaves and destroy any Zephyrian forces that try to stop us. The liberation of Kepler 442b took less than 12 hours. The Zephyrian garrison was caught completely off guard by the human attack. They had never seen tactics like the ones the humans used, and they had never faced an enemy that fought to free slaves rather than conquer territory. The freed aliens were overwhelmed with gratitude. Many of them had never believed they would see freedom again. But the humans did not ask for anything in return except help in freeing other worlds. News of the liberation spread across the galaxy faster than light. Other enslaved worlds began to rebel against their Zephyrian masters. Other empires began to take notice of this new power that called itself humanity. The galaxy was changing. For the first time in centuries, the enslaved had hope. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet that had received one warning from a galactic empire and had responded by freeing the galaxy. War Marshal Dexfer watched the news reports from his prison cell. His empire was crumbling as World after World was liberated by the humans. He had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, and instead he had awakened something that would change the galaxy forever. In his final report to the Zephyrian High Command, before all communication was lost, he wrote, "We targeted a primitive world and received only one warning. We should have listened. The humans are not like other species. They do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight for freedom, and they will not stop until every slave in the galaxy is free. We have awakened something terrible and wonderful, and I fear that the age of empires is over." The message was never received. By the time it would have reached the Zephyrian homeworld, that world too had been liberated by the humans, and their growing alliance of freed species. Earth had given the galaxy one warning. The galaxy had not listened. Now the galaxy was learning what humanity was truly capable of when they decided to fight not for themselves, but for others. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of freedom had begun.